What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to another edition of Dangle Bet Selly, presented by FTN Bets, right here on Game Plus Network, also on FTN Network, our YouTube page. You can listen to Dangle Bet Selly on iTunes and Spotify, but by now you are well aware, I'm sure you're not just stumbling across the show right now, but you may be. And if you are, welcome in. Smash that like button. And if you are listening on iTunes and Spotify, rate, review, subscribe, leave EY comments. I see he's coming in here red hot. You got to be rocking Florida gear today, right? Yeah. How does it feel? Like the Leafs had a chance to knock those guys out, and maybe you were a little bit uneasy about their game at the moment, like at that time in the second round. But looking at it big picture, Florida's kind of cruised through here over the last, 10 games or so. They've been absolutely unbelievable, unstoppable.
Yeah, look, there's no secret if you watch the show. I love hockey. I have like 70 jerseys. I have like 50 of these. So I can support all the teams. Yeah, I'm a psycho. But people that have listened to me and you, whether it was here or Force Tech Lines or the Mayo Network or wherever we've been doing the show, we've been Florida Panther fans for a long time, even when they weren't good. We liked a ton of the players. I've always been a pretty staunch supporter of Sam Bennett. Always liked his game. I can imagine if you're a Florida or a Calgary Flames fan, you're watching his play and watching him dictate in every aspect of the game and wondering, like, this guy couldn't play 10 minutes a game in Calgary.
Couldn't find ice time for him in Calgary.
With
literally couldn't find ice time for
Lucic and Nick Ritchie and these players playing above him. The reality is it's complete madness. There's a lot to say about the confidence in the NHL, and when the team you play for, the coach you play for, and the system that you play in has confidence in you and what that does. The reality is all these guys are freaks, right? Every single person in the NHL is the best player that you know. Like if you were a person who played at any level, if you got on the ice with any one of these guys, it would be the best player you have ever been on the ice with in your life. And it's not even close. And Sam Bennett is... Dude, he might be one of the most perfect hockey players in the last 10 years. He does everything. And
he's
a guy that couldn't do a pull-up at the combine, because of an injury. But he's a beast. Like, that hit on Slavin was masterclass, and it sucks that he got hurt, but it certainly wasn't dirty. It was just really, really hard.
He punishes people and that's why, from a fantasy hockey standpoint, this show last year, we were just completely on Sam Bennett because of what he brings to the table from like a fantasy hockey standpoint. He can
in a bangers league, in a fantasy bangers league, he's a first round pick because he hits, he blocks, he scores, he does everything.
Absolutely. Like, it was a little bit of a quote unquote letdown. Like, it was hard for him to duplicate what he did the year before. Like, his first full season in Florida was fantastic. He was a top 20 fantasy hockey player in those leagues that you mentioned, bangers leagues, getting penalties, willing to drop the gloves, like people that play with penalty minutes, but like hits. And then he gets time on the power play. He's not afraid to shoot the puck. Like last night, 11 shot attempts, 6 shots, leads all skaters. And at 5-5, he had 9 shot attempts. We got that one pretty easily. The 2.5 shot prop was something that we've been hammering since he's been a member of the Florida Panthers. And when he was traded from Calgary, it just happened for him right away. Like in the final couple weeks of that season,
superstar player.
Yeah, it just went from what you said, couldn't crack the lineup in Calgary, playing 10 minutes in the bottom 6. There were only moments where he was up in the top 6 in Calgary. And I know they were loaded at the time and they had a really good first line, but my goodness, like, this guy could not find ice time. And I tweeted last night.
Bottom, he should be playing on the third line, worst case scenario.
Worst case.
He barely played.
Oh, yeah, barely played. And just such a huge factor. I loved the hit too. Like I did feel for Slavin, of course, when the guy was just immediately knocked out. Didn't know where he was
Yeah,
at. Tried to get up and fell back
it's
down. It
not,
was a hard shoulder. I think he got a little bit of his head, but it was clean as could be. And really, this is a guy that you just have to keep your head up when he's on the ice. And Matthew Tkachuk plays the same way. That's why. I mean, you said it. I tweeted it last night. I can't imagine Calgary Flames fans just sitting back watching those two guys and the style that they play. It's very rare. It's old school style of hockey. You don't see like Matthew Tkachuk is why I'm just so crazy about the way that he plays and everything about him. Besides the fact that he's hanging out with that mouth guard, like kids maybe put the mouth guard
just mangling it.
But yeah, the way that he plays, the style that he plays with, right? The leadership. I mean, he was mic'd up last night. He's telling the boys like, everything that you want to hear from a leader. Right. Yep. And he's just a new guy on the team, but he's really taken a larger voice because Barkov I view as like an on ice leader. He's pretty quiet, isn't
that's
say
Matthew Tkachuk's team, and you can see it.
Yeah, like, and both of those guys that were up on the press conference last night after the game, it was Tkachuk and Barkov, and Tkachuk was taking all those questions and talking as a leader, really. And Barkov was pretty quiet and timid, but he was saying things. But you're right, Matthew Tkachuk is like that. He's certainly a leader in what he brought to the team. Like this team last year was the best team in hockey. The Florida Panthers were the best team in the NHL. They set all kinds of records. They were dominant. They scored almost 5 goals per game, which is like the most goals in, I think, like the mid 90s, early 90s that we've seen from a team. They were unbelievable. They just made a little switch. That's it. It was just, a coaching change for sure. And I know a lot of people were hating on that change with Paul Maurice. But Paul Maurice, we talked about him, I think, in the last episode. He's been around longer than anybody. He has most losses as a head coach, and it's not because he's a brutal head coach. He's just been around.
He coached Rob Brindamore.
Absolutely, yeah. He's been around, and this is his first year in Florida. And then that change, bringing in Matthew Tkachuk and that leadership, and again, just mic'd up last night. Talking to the guys, finishing all the hits. He can score goals. Clearly, 4 goals in this series. All of them were just massive goals. Game 1 and game 2, overtime last night, just the patience he had, to wrap around. You got to know that the clock is ticking, time is running out. He gets the puck on the side and just has the patience to kind of skate over in the middle and just tap it in. It's unbelievable.
90% of the players in the NHL shoot that puck right away. Because of the time of the game, because of all the bodies around, because of the dire, situation that they're in. And he holds it for another, second and a half and shoots the puck into a completely open net. He's
fantastic.
To me, what makes him even more spectacular as a player is he's a poor skater. Like, he's probably in the bottom 25% of skaters in the league. Like, even to a person that doesn't recognize a good stride or anything like that, like you can see that he's not a great skater. Like,
no,
I'm not saying I'm comparing myself. Like he's 1,000 times better skater than me, but I'm saying in the NHL comparatively, like he doesn't get around the ice well. He's not really fast. He's not explosive, but it's the hockey IQ. And he does this thing you'll see during the game that I'm not comparing him to Wayne Gretzky, but like on the forecheck, F1 will be in and he'll go somewhere and you'll be like, where in the
he's going
where
with the puck
is he going?
Yeah.
And it looks like he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. And then the puck comes around and he's standing there by himself.
He's super
with it down low. It's insane.
And I think why he's like the complete package is what we're talking about. Like all those things. And it's rare to see a power forward like from the, I don't know, like we would see in the mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Like those kind of players are kind of out of the game. Like they can bring it from a physical standpoint and they could drop the gloves, but they don't have that offensive ability. And, Brady Tkachuk's the same way. I think Brady's a little bit tougher, but Matthew's a little bit more of a playmaker. Like he's got a little bit smarter of a player to your point, getting in those areas where Gretzky always got. You always heard that about Gretzky. I always heard that watching him as a kid, younger, seeing him in the mid 90s, really early to mid 90s, it was kind of already past his prime. Like I know 93 was a big year for him. I'd say the mid 90s still kind of in his prime, but he was just a guy that went to those areas those soft areas where he would be forgotten about. Right. And then
which is insane.
Pucks on his stick. Yeah, we're like stay on 99 all the time. But Matthew, same way. But Matthew has that playmaking ability where I kind of view him as a pass first guy. Like he's always, when we're talking about props, he's always 1.5. He's always,
Well, he's certainly not a shooter, right? Like his shot is fine,
but he doesn't shoot enough. But yeah, that's what I think the difference between him and Brady. They're both superstars. I love seeing Brady there with his dad and Keith there. They're watching the support in the sun, and Brady's drinking the PGA Championship. He's with Brooks and he's drinking.
How this isn't a television show, like
the Tkachuk family.
Matthew and Brady, I understand they're on NHL teams currently, and they couldn't be involved totally. But like, is Walt Tkachuk not one of the most interesting human beings on earth?
I mean, they all are. I'm
think about that family and the lineage, and the mother seems super interesting, and they just support each other and are viciously loyal. Like, it's a TV show. It's a TV
really
show waiting to happen, and the NHL should capitalize on it. They won't, because that's not what they do. But I mean, you could bring eyes to the game that have never watched it before because of the interesting family aspect that the Tkachuks are and who they are in the game. In the NHL.
I can't believe the Canadians, man. Like Mark Bergevin and company. What are you guys thinking a couple years ago when they had the 3rd overall pick and they passed on Brady Tkachuk for Jesperi Kotkaniemi? Like, what in the heck?
That's a wild decision.
It just, yeah. I mean, you have a guy with the last name Tkachuk, and what I'm talking about, Keith, success in the NHL, and then seeing Matthew, success growing up through the juniors. Like this wasn't just a guy that just was awesome a couple years ago. Like he was great throughout his young professional hockey career, and he was great in the NHL for the first couple of years. And then they have an opportunity to get a guy like Brady, who's already a captain in the NHL. And then they passed because they needed a center, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, they drafted like 15 centers that year. My goodness, like it makes me sick.
Kotkaniemi is a great player, but Brady Tkachuk is a superstar player. Matthew Tkachuk in an interview said he's a better player than Matthew. I don't think that's true, but they said he's a better athlete. I mean, I think, from what I can see, he's a better skater. Certainly he's bigger, he's stronger. I think this year is going to be a big, big year for Brady Tkachuk.
So we're going to get into, maybe we'll revisit the Panthers in just a little bit. We'll start here with the game tonight, game 4 tonight between Dallas and Vegas. We'll get into that in a second, but it is amazing here. The Florida Panthers, the last year being the best team in the NHL, cruising, liking them. For me, I had a 22-1 Stanley Cup future on them in the summer. I have 5-1 to win the Atlantic Division. I mean, they were really good to us. They were especially good to us on home ice, Florida and the over. Sam Bennett shot props. Like we cashed a lot of tickets with Florida last year. And I guess we were in on them a year too early, because this year, in December, it looked like they were toast. They were 9 points out of a playoff spot in December. Looked like the Canadians, speaking of them, had Florida's first round pick, and potentially there was some talk about them having 2 chances at Connor Bedard in the lottery. Not the case, of course, but they looked toast in December. They were just not playing consistent hockey. Then they went on a run where they needed to go on a run. And before we got on here, you and I were talking about 48 hours before the NHL season was over and the playoffs would begin. They were out. They needed help. The Pittsburgh Penguins were playing the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Pens were minus 500 favorites to beat the Blackhawks to get into the playoffs, and they lost to Chicago, and Florida finds a way to get in. They're down 3-1 to the best team that we've ever seen play in the regular season, in the Boston Bruins, and 65 wins, 135 points, down 3-1. Made the switch to their $10 million backup goalie, who hadn't played great hockey really in a couple years.
Yep.
He's lights out. He was just okay against Boston, but he made the saves. 43-point gap between the Bruins and the Panthers. One of the largest upsets of all time in the NHL. Then they get into the second round where the Maple Leafs are the Stanley Cup favorites, and they take care of them pretty easily in 5 games. 19-point gap between the two teams. Then they go into the third round against the Carolina Hurricanes, who have really cruised up into this point in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, lacking depth, going through multiple goalies. 21-point gap between those two teams. And here we are. The Panthers, it's just an unbelievable story. It really is. Like, these guys almost didn't get in. All that would have been talked about was the Sherratt trade and all these other things. Bobrovsky. Imagine the Bobrovsky talk in the offseason. What are you going to do in the future?
Oh,
Alex Lyon.
fire him into the sun. That's
Oh,
what
yeah, like
everyone in Florida would have been saying.
What's happening here, right?
And then included.
Of course,
$10
me
million
as well.
to sit on
All
the
of
bench.
us. Yeah. And then they get in and then they go on this run, right? Everybody was talking Alex Lion King could be the guy that can get them through the Bruins and upset them. But here it was, Sergei Bobrovsky who got it done. And now they're going to play in the Stanley Cup Finals. I do want to, of course, give love to Bobrovsky on this show. I mean, Pete Jensen came in and I said it last week to you. He just wouldn't stop talking about it. Actually, it was Tuesday with you. He wouldn't stop talking about Bobrovsky 9-1, 9-1, 9-1. He was 2-1 on Tuesday's episode. He's massive. He's a massive favorite now. Goals saved above average over at Natural Stat Trick, 12.63. Is number one, of course, by far. Number two is Aiden Hill, which we can kind of transition into that, 6.16. Who would have thought, right? Those have been arguably the best two goalies in the NHL over the last couple of weeks here into the playoffs, Aiden Hill and Sergei Bobrovsky, and that's the Stanley Cup Finals that we may see.
Just like we all predicted.
Just like we all predicted. So we'll see if Florida can win the Stanley Cup. 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners have won the President's Trophy the year before. So maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's just a curse in that year. And then the next year you're going to get it done because the Capitals won the President's Trophy. Then they won the Stanley Cup the following year. The Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, President's Trophy, won the Stanley Cup the following year. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup last year. They were President's Trophy winners the year before that. And now we have the Florida Panthers who won the President's Trophy last year and are here in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I just keep thinking about Carter Verhaeghe and what he said after they beat the Bruins, that they just had that taste of, being up at the top, but having that pressure and then not coming through. And then also thinking, you know what, Boston's going through the same thing that we went. We don't have the pressure on us now like we had the pressure on us last year. And that stuff is huge, right? Yeah, you're playing a little loose. You nobody's expecting you to win. Everybody's expecting Boston to win, and yet they just went on.
It's the easiest coaching scenario, right? Like I'm not taking anything away from Paul Maurice, but like every time he goes in and he just says, everybody, it's us against the world, right? That's the easiest coaching story narrative of all time.
Yeah. Nobody
thinks we can do it. We all know that we can do it, so let's go do it. And the players play like lunatics. Montour never comes off the ice. Sam Bennett crushing souls. Matthew Tkachuk scoring every important goal in the world. And Bobrovsky has been lights out. It's the Los Angeles Kings from the first time they won the Cup. It's the exact same scenario. Jonathan Quick was so during the year. They just barely sneak in the 8th seed into the playoffs. Jonathan Quick turns into what looked to be the greatest goalie to ever live. LA was playing this weird, slow, forecheck style, dump it in, slam into everybody. No one else was playing it like that at that point. And then the whole world, the NHL said, "Oh, geez, we got to get these big guys. We got to get, we got to forecheck. We've got to, play north south." And all the teams started mimicking them. Florida is very similar. I mean, it's a mirror to what LA did that first year they won the Cup, and it's such a cool story. And a lot of people are saying that they don't have the depth. Like Luster-Reinen has been great. Like
and Lundell, like that. I think that's the reason why they're really here. Like we'll look at Bobrovsky, we'll look at Tkachuk and Sam Bennett. It's been physical. I thought Barkov had a really good series. I thought honestly, Anthony Duclair, I thought was his best series, and he checked a lot of boxes for me at 5-5. He was Florida's best player heading into last night, and he had a goal to get them going. So he's been kind of really sneaky. It takes some time to come back from an Achilles injury. That's a significant injury. We don't even see guys really fully come back. Pacioretty, other players in the NFL, but Anthony Duclair, one of our favorites, as you talked about, we've been on the Panthers for a while, and Duclair's been one of those guys that we've loved dating back to the Ottawa Senators. It's like, guys, he's still only 12% owned, and he's scoring a goal every single night or every other night. But yeah, it was good for him to kind of pop off. But I think that's been the difference, is that third line. I thought that third line was the difference against the Leafs, right? They just couldn't handle Sam Reinhart and Lundell and Luster-Reinen. And man, Gudas finishes absolutely every hit. He's so physical. Forsling is a guy that nobody talks about. He was great. He's a fantastic skater, can join the rush. And we know that Ekblad and Montour's having his coming out party this year. So it's, yeah, I mean, the Panthers are certainly legit. Obviously, this is not fluky what they're doing. I mean, they're not, at the same time, Carolina was in a lot of these games. And Rod Brind'Amour said after the game, it doesn't feel
100%.
like a sweep. They lost game 1 and 2 on home ice in overtime. They played almost a perfect game in game 3, especially in the last 40 minutes. They didn't even give up any shots, and they were all over it. And then last night, I thought that they played pretty solid. They came back a couple times, down 2-0, come back in the game. And it was a great game, and they tied it up late, and that's it. So it was a really good series. Unfortunately for us as hockey fans, even though we were both on the Panthers to win this series, and at the end of the day, we had issues about Carolina's lack of depth, and eventually it caught up to them, clearly. Like, they got through the first 2 rounds against mediocre teams. I'm going to say it. Islanders, mediocre squad. New Jersey, good team, super young, looked inexperienced, and that's what happened. But this is no fluke by all means. The Panthers deserve to be here, and they've been playing fantastic. So we're going to get in tonight, say what up to the people here, to the fam. Want to say last night was really good. We had a 2-unit play on Sebastian Aho. We'd sweat that out a little bit. We had Martin Necas a little bit. We got that late. We had Sam Bennett, which we touched on as well. And we had a Prize Picks entry at 24-1, which looked like it cashed 6 for 6. I got ahead of myself. I was celebrating. We had it in the Discord channel, and then they took a shot away from Jordan Martinook, but it ended up being a 10-1. So we had Bobrovsky over 30 saves. We had Aho over 2.5. We had Necas over 2.5. We had Teuvo Teravainen over 1.5 and Brent Burns over 3. And then we had Martinook over 2.5. So it was looking like, a 24-1 hit, but we got a 10-1, which is great over at Prize Picks. You can go 5 for 6 and still earn yourself a profit. So that 24-1, if it was 6 for 6, 24 times your money, you put $100 on it. You're loving it, right? $2,400. You put $50 on it, just shy of $1,300. You just put $25. You put a couple bucks on it. You don't have to go big, put a couple on it. But Prize Picks allows you for a little bit of a safety net. You miss one. We talk about it all the time. When you give 8 goal scorers, you go 7 for 8. Like, Prize Picks gives you a little bit of a cushion there. So we're going to continue to do this. I think tonight maybe we can get one on the way out where we do some saves and we go Aiden Hill and take some Dallas shooters. I think that's kind of the way I'm leaning here right now. But promo code FTN, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. Using that promo code, I'll put a link inside the description of this video. We have a free Prize Picks Discord channel. If you go to ftndaily.com and click Discord up at the top, it'll get you in there. And if you're subbed with us over at FTN Daily and FTN Bets, we're very active in the Discord channel, not only just giving picks at sports books like PointsBet, but also books like Prize Picks and Underdog Fantasy, where you can do the same sort of thing, over or under on a player's prop. And people that want to do same game parlays that can't, their book won't allow them. We've been having some success at Bet365, like last night for Hagee and Barkov, a point plus 130, cashed super early. Most people are, they can't do that stuff at DraftKings or FanDuel or Bet Rivers, but Prize Picks and Underdog will allow you to do a same game parlay as long as you have, 2 teams represented. So you can take a goalie and opposing shooters, and it does all correlate that way. So really happy with how last night went. And so we'll try to do something similar for tonight. Want to say what up to the people. John Marchese in the house, sweep. Yes. Maybe another one here tonight. Florida Panthers, Florida effing Panthers, Bruce East 91. What? Good for the team. Wow. It is good. Hopefully they fill that barn. Maybe it's like 96 all over, and then they get swept in the finals against the Western Conference team. We'll see. The Panthers to win the Eastern Conference, 100 to win 2K cashes. Also for Hagee, more shots on goal than Seth Jarvis. Yes, we had a couple of Hagee props in this series. More points, more shots. I think the goals were a wash. I think he had one and Seth had one as well. Ooh, talking a little World Hockey Championship here, right? Finland and Canada. You're a true psycho, and I love it. Mikko Rantanen minus 190 for a point today seems like a good parlay with Rupe Hintz. I can't bet that sort of stuff here with my book. I did see him for a goal at plus 155, which I can get behind as well. Can Dallas win for our entertainment, please? And John says no. Sweet. Troy says, okay, fine. Brooms. EY, all the best today with your surgery, brother. Yes, I echo that as well. We are rooting for you here today. Get to see your first Stanley Cup game. Very nice. It should be rocking. Absolutely. What up, boys? Adam Rankkamp in the house. Kevin Fiala out here cycling the zone like a madman with an assist from Siegenthaler, Switzerland to tie it up. I just love it. You're a psycho. Welcome in. Dustin in the house. Hey guys, it's been too long. Yeah, we've missed you. Where are you at? All the gang is here. Yes, we are all here.
We're rolling. We're rolling 4 lines deep here.
We are. Consumed tons of espresso today. I'm ready to rock. Absolutely. Those games are early. I'm betting more tonight, knowing we may not have hockey for a week. Okay, fair enough. We'll find some winners here for you. Adam Rankkamp, one piece away. I think they got it. That was, I believe, the Matthew Tkachuk talk. Yeah, you wonder how many teams called about Matthew Tkachuk because the Flames are in such a bad spot. Like Johnny Gaudreau wanted out of town, so they were just going to lose him for nothing. And then Matthew Tkachuk was refusing to sign, as an RFA. So you just wonder the offers. Like we thought they did pretty good. Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, we thought they did okay. Maybe with a new voice in the room, maybe they'll be even better. Calgary had more points than Florida. They didn't make playoffs.
There you go.
Think about that for a second. You know what I mean? Like it was a disaster in Calgary, but I mean, they had a better regular season than the Florida Panthers, but that's it. We don't talk about that. Your Blues were not in on Matthew Tkachuk. Originally thought appointing Paul Maurice was a bad decision because of how overwhelming the Jets were under. Yeah, you know what? It didn't work out with him with the Jets towards the end. He said they needed a new voice in the room, but man, he's a really good coach. I think everything that we've heard about Winnipeg, I don't want to spend too much time on them, but they have a locker room problem.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the players. Like you've already Bonus came out and basically chewed them up. We had Paul Stastny last year at this time. Remember? Was it this year last time, or was when the Habs played them in the bubble? I think it may have been this year last. Yeah. Either way, he just said there was a problem in the locker room, and it was either at Blake Wheeler or Mark Scheifele, and Wheeler had the C strip. So I think, they need more than a head coach. I think they need to shake it up dramatically in Winnipeg and get rid of one of those two guys.
It's hard when players get in control and they have no trades, and it's just easier to fire the GM and fire the coaches and fire the staff, to keep even though it's not their problem. You know what I mean? Like that's not. It's proven to me. Everything points towards it's a personnel problem. It's a player problem, and you can keep trying to put band-aids on it, but look at Paul Maurice. I mean, he's one of the best coaches in the NHL, and he just said, basically, they won't listen to me anymore. And I'm out.
Well, I mean, I've heard things I've heard some stuff about Wheeler and Scheifele. Not being
Vander Kane talked about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, Kane's one thing, but these guys
Bufflin quit playing hockey. He's making millions of dollars a year and just I'm done.
And I know Kane is probably not the best guy to bring up, but my goodness, there were reports in Winnipeg that they just straight up took his clothes and put him in the shower one day, like Evander Kane. Like, how's that for leadership, right? Daily Handle in the house, Jordan Allen, welcome in. We do appreciate you. If it wasn't for Lyon, it would be, he's all part of it, of course. I don't want to downplay what he did to get him to that point. Diehard MMA podcast. If I'm going to be sick if another Coyotes goalie wins a cup. Aiden Hills look pretty good, dude. Stahl with face-off wins. Everyone, Stahl. Richard in the house. Yes, he's a degenerate. I guess he had that. Bob saves. Yes, Prize Picks bets. Check it out. Absolutely. So let's get after it. I think we said, man, I don't know what's going on with your shirt. I really don't know. I'm gonna have to send another one. I've sent 2 out apparently to wrong people, but you should have had it by now. I don't know what's going on there. I'm gonna have to give somebody a call, dude. Oh yeah, there's some massive Pierre-Luc Dubois rumors of him going to the Canadiens. Chris, I pray that he puts his ego aside when he joins the Canadiens. It seems like George, he's hanging out. He loves PLD. Hey, how many times are we going to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois if he's a member of the Bleu Blanc Rouge, George? If he's going to go to Montreal, my goodness. It's been rumored for a couple years, but if I'm Kent Hughes, I'm not trading anything for Pierre-Luc Dubois. I saw a rumor the other day. It was, I think, a second-round pick, Josh Anderson and Christian Dvorak, and the reports of Winnipeg turned that down. Why are you trading for him if he wants to go there? He's an RFA. He doesn't want to sign a long-term deal. I don't think it's the end of the world to if you get him or not. It'd be nice. I know he has some issues. Maybe he'll clean those up if he plays for his hometown, his favorite team as a kid, but don't trade these pieces to get him. Come on. There's no, like, just let him sign. I mean, trading pieces to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. Let's get after tonight. I got issues with Jamie Benn. Do you? People say I'm too hard on him, but
I mean,
here we go.
It's insane. And as the captain, like as an important part of Dallas, and like I understand frustration, but the reality is he's good for one or two of these a year, it seems like, where he just the wires cross and he loses his mind. Like, I don't even know what he's thinking there. Like, it's Mark Stone is trying to make contact. He knocks him down and then like cross checks him in the face. Like, I don't understand, one, what you believe that brings to your team. You're the captain. You play on the power play. Like, people are looking to you for leadership. You're one of the best players on the team, and by all accounts is really well liked by the people that play with him. Has been a good player for a decade. A player that I love to watch play, is tough and physical, but that's way over the line. Like, it's stupidity. It's blatant stupidity. And he cost himself a couple games and likely cost Dallas the season, right? It looks real bad. I mean, that happens, in the first 6 minutes of the game?
First 2 minutes of the game. First couple minutes of the game.
Stupidity.
Talk about stupidity. It's so dumb. I know he plays with an edge. I get that.
That's not an edge, right? That's it. And like, that's hit from Bennett. Of course, the internet, it's not the real world. Nobody get too excited about it. But like, people, this can't be a part of hockey. If you eliminate that from hockey, then I'm not watching it anymore. Like, I don't want Slavin to get hurt, but people get hurt, man. Like, it just happens. Slavin is well aware of the risks. He's compensated handsomely. And I think if you asked Jacob Slavin, he would say he doesn't want that hit out of hockey. He doesn't want that hit to happen to him. Of course, nobody does. Mm-hmm. But that's the game. But what Jamie Benn did to Mark Stone should never happen. Just as a professional, you look like an idiot. You look like a complete idiot.
He costs his game of the year. Most important game of the year. He cost his team a chance at the Stanley Cup. That's it. Straight up. He cost his team a chance at winning the Stanley Cup. I know that they were down 2-0. I know they were down 1-0 early, but the game was not out of control at that moment. He takes that 5 and, he gets kicked out of the game. So you're putting Vegas on a 5-minute power play, where at that point the game was out of control then. After that 5-minute power play is over, now he's suspended for 2 games. He's the leader of your team. He wears a C. So again, I get it. He plays with an edge. That wasn't an edge. It was dirty. I hate his comments after. I don't believe them. Is anybody buying what he's selling, that he wishes that he fell on Stone? You just fell on Mark Stone. You wish that you braced yourself in a different way. Dude, you didn't fall on Mark Stone. You cross-checked him. You made it like he went out of his way to go down on him. And yeah, that's what I would like to see from Ben, because I've seen that before from him. And that's the type of player that I do respect. Like, he's a little dirty. Let's be honest. He's a little chippy. If I were to name the 5 dirtiest players in the NHL,
Matthew Tkachuk. So is Brad Marchand. So is
that's what I mean when these guys play with an edge. But he costs his team absolutely everything. And when you're the captain doing that to start, you follow your leader. And I thought that the Stars were clearly frustrated. I get it. The game was out of control right away, but you see your captain do that. He's kicked out 5 minutes, or you're ticked off at that point. But I thought Dallas was taking a bunch of silly penalties. They looked frustrated. Max Domi did something so silly in the corner as well, cross-check on the back of Hagg's neck, and then gives him a couple shots. And Hagg's just sitting there literally laughing at him. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're putting your team in such a brutal situation here. Now you're going to go in the box for another 15 minutes. This guy got a 5 and a 10. So it's just, I don't know, Dallas out of control. And I know it's tough to look at it from an analytical standpoint when you see like the game was already out of control and Vegas went on this shell. like defensive shell after they were up by a couple. But this is a team that had 23 shot attempts at 5-5 in game 3. They had 10 shots on goal. They had 3 shots in the final 2 periods. 3 at 5-5, 3 shots in the final 2 periods. Their expected goals at 5-5 in game 3 was 0.42. So I don't know. You take that with a grain of salt, maybe, but Dallas, I thought, played pretty good at 5-5. Even being down in that game, I thought that they played pretty good. But now the story is Adin Hill. Adin Hill comes in for relief against the Oilers, goes into a hostile environment in Edmonton.
Hasn't
looked back. My goodness, right? And now here in this round, the first 2 games were overtime wins from Vegas, and then just the other one in Dallas. This guy has been. He's not Bobrovsky-like, but he's been unbelievable. He's been fantastic for them. Do you think it's all over tonight, or do you think Dallas gets one?
I got to believe that Dallas is going to get one here. They're just such a good team. Ottinger has yet to show up and be Jake Ottinger in this series, and
even the last series, he was pulled a couple times.
Yeah, it's really weird, right? Like, he's been lights out for the majority of the year. He's been unbelievable in the early part of the playoffs. But last series, like you said, being pulled a couple times, there was a thing saying that almost every time he loses a game, he almost, like, I want to say it was like 98% of the time he wins the next game. That looks like that's a little bit blowing up at this point.
Yeah, because of what
not
happened.
Having your captain is a big deal. And I think if Dallas doesn't get on the board early, they're going to be in trouble. You know, if Vegas scores the first goal, I would, if you can live bet and you get good odds, bet on Vegas to win, because I mean they're deep, they're ultra deep. Jack Eichel looks like the Jack Eichel that Buffalo thought they were getting. He looks unbelievable. Mark Stone is certainly hurt and one of the poorest skaters in the NHL, but he's an absolute beauty when it comes to just hockey intelligence, competitiveness, you know, like stripping people and just stick in the perfect position at all times. And Adin Hill, Mike McKenna, Daily Faceoff was talking about this the other day. I can't remember what show he was on. He does awesome stuff. If you guys don't follow him, follow him. Was a goalie for years in the NHL. He said Adin Hill a year ago it was always talked about this potential, right? Like, he's crazy athletic. He's like 6'5",
big boy. Yeah.
You know, he has every tool, but would kind of play with his hair on fire a little bit, you know, and would get out of position and if you're out of position or you're not right, getting a body that size back into position is very difficult just because of the leverage and the length of your limbs and the length of your torso. Someone like Saros can be out of position and recover and get back to where he needs to be it's easier, right? He doesn't take up as much of the net, but he's more in control of his body because it's easier to control a frame that size. Adin Hill, since starting the playoffs, he looks like just completely in control. And with a goalie that size, if you're in control and you're taking all the right angles, like, they just have nothing to shoot at because of his size and because of how calmly he's playing. It's a really cool story.
It is a really cool story. Yeah. I do think Dallas wins tonight. I think that
I do too.
I mean, I thought that they were going to win game 3 as well, but maybe that's why
I said they're going to win the series, and that looks unlikely, right? But I think they win tonight.
Yeah. I think they win tonight as well. Vegas is a really good road team. There's something about these playoffs, right? A diehard says, like, all the sweeps. We know we're seeing it in the NBA as well. But yeah, how many sweeps we're going to have in the playoffs this season getting out of hand? It's just been a weird playoffs. I think I said it before round 3 started, and I don't quote me on the number, but I think it was like the first week into round 2, 2 weeks maybe into round 2, like just a handful of games into the second round, was 32 road victories in the playoffs and 36 in the entire playoffs last year. They've cruised past that. Think about Florida in game 1 and 2. Think about Vegas in game 3, right? The road victories, I don't know what it is. Parity across the league, you know, good goaltending, you know, home ice advantage is not as key as it was in the past, but I don't know. Really, I've seen good coaching here in the playoffs and coaches that are on their, with the team for the first time. Bruce Cassidy, first time with Vegas. Paul Maurice, first time with Florida. Even Pete DeBoer, right? First time with Dallas as a member of Vegas last year, kicked to the curb, and now his old team is making him look silly behind the bench. But a couple things here for tonight. So, you saw the odds. I am in on Dallas to win the game here at -114. Prop shops your friend, parlay calculator, get the best possible odds. Wyatt Johnson, I don't know. We're going to talk about him again here for a second. I'm going to give him a little bit of love. This was before the last game. We had him. I'm just looking at a tweet that I had in a pick from +134 over 2.5 shots from FanDuel. And heading into that game 3, he had led the Stars in shot attempts, scoring chances at 5-5. His 6 shots ranked second to Tyler Seguin. And overall, he led Dallas. This is all strengths with 15 attempts, 10 shots, 9 scoring chances, and 6 high danger chances. He's averaging 2.2 shots per game on the road in 8 playoff games. On the road, just 2.2. Despite having 10 shots in the first 2 games of the series in Vegas, still only 2.2 shots per game on the road through 8. But here on home ice, 27 shots in 7 games, which is 3.8 shots per game. And then in the last game, he had 4 shots. So overall, through 3 games in this series, he's got 14 shots, which leads Dallas. He's got 19 shot attempts, which is just 3 behind Tyler Seguin. He's got 11 scoring chances, which is up at the top, tied with Seguin. And he's got 7 high danger chances. We talked about him before this series started, that he was 5th in expected goals for at 5-5 in these playoffs. He's been really, really good. I'm not sure what Dallas does with their lines here, but Wyatt Johnson's going to get some ice time. He's been very noticeable for Dallas at 5-5. Yep. He's been very noticeable on the power play. They could put Sagan on that first unit in place of Ben. They could put Wyatt Johnson on that first unit in place of Ben. But this is a must-win situation. He's going to get some ice time here tonight. There's no question. So I put this in last night before I crashed. It's now +112 over at FanDuel for him to have 3 shots. That's the guy that I'm looking at. Roope Hintz is obvious. Guys, we're all on Roope Hintz. Been on him for months and months and months. You're going to have to find a way to put him into some sort of parlay. I don't know, with a basketball prop, or if you can't do a same game parlay or anything like that. But for me, the 2 props that I like are Wyatt Johnson over 2.5. And then Aiden Hill over 27.5 saves at -124. You got a goal scorer, Jason Robertson. We said it, right? Once you break out, you kind of...
We're in lockstep with the Wyatt Johnson. DraftKings has got an odds boost of +200. So I got him to score first tonight. And I know that it's not a smart bet, guys. I'm not saying it is. But I feel with the amount of shots, the fact that he will be on the ice more and should be. He's maybe been one of, if not their most noticeable players in this series. So I like him to score first tonight. Nothing major, but the odds I got are +1900. I got Pavelski to score first as well. I got Robertson to score, Eichel, and Riley Smith. Riley Smith has been... He's been good. He's been awesome all playoffs. And
so is William
every
Carlson.
Time I watch, he's just such an underrated player. Vegas talks about him. If you ask players in Vegas who's the best player on the team, almost everybody to a man, other than Jack Eichel, they say Riley Smith. Just what a hockey player. And I think if Vegas scores, it's going to be Riley Smith or Jack Eichel tonight.
So I'm looking at Prize Picks, and they don't have Aiden Hill yet for saves, but I'm going to do something similar last night that worked out for us pretty good. So I'm going to do Robertson over 3 shots, Pavelski over 2, Sagan over 2.5, Roope Hintz over 3, and Wyatt Johnson over 2. And then I'm going to put Aiden Hill in there at over whatever he's going to be at, 27, 28 saves. I think he probably makes 30 saves or something tonight. We're going to see like a massive push from Dallas, like we saw last night from Carolina, the flirt with 40 shots and things like that. So I would rank them: Wyatt Johnson over 2, Roope Hintz over 3, Tyler Seguin over 2.5. I'd go Robertson over 3, then Pavelski over 2. Robertson has been quiet, but he has still been getting plenty of shot attempts. He had 10 shot attempts in the last game, and I think he only hit the net once. Like, he's having issues, man. Guys are blocking shots. He's maybe just gripping the stick a little bit too tight, trying to pick those corners, but the attempts are still there. Like, he is still getting them. So Robertson, Pavelski, Sagan, Hintz, Wyatt Johnson, and Aiden Hill. For the Bet365 users out there, I would go with Rupe Hintz and Shea Theodore. Those two guys, Rupe Hintz over 2.5 shots, Shea Theodore over 1.5. That's plus 130. Theodore's been hitting consistently for us over 1.5. The books keep hanging 1.5, but it's just too juiced to take as a single at minus 200. But he's on that first power play unit. He's been pretty good over the past few games. And so is Alex Pietrangelo, who's over 1.5 shots. Both of those defenders are getting the shot attempts to take at 1.5. I'm kind of shy away from Eichel and Marchessault at 3.5. I would lean with Marchessault over Eichel, but that's kind of where I'm at. And of course, just the Wyatt Johnson I see is minus 110 over at Bet365, but you can get some better odds there. Use our prop shop parlay calculator. For player points here tonight, I've been doing Eichel and Marchessault. Eichel and Marchessault for a point, that's plus 125. It correlates. Those two guys are together. Barbashev had a really nice game. You could put that in if you want to make it plus 350. I personally will just go with Eichel and Marchessault at plus 125. And I also like to do Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone for a point. They play together. William Karlsson's taken that top spot in that power play, but they still play 5 and 5 together. Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone for a point. That's plus 170. And then I do the Pavelski and Rupe Hintz for a point at plus 115. I'm not really sure how these lines are going to shape up. Actually, why don't you take it away for a second, and I'm going to just do some digging on what we saw from the Stars when Ben left. I think there was a lot of line juggling. I think there was a question here about Aiden Hill before we get out of here. He's 20-1. I think that question from Brzezis is probably Conn Smythe. What do you think the chances are that he could win the Conn Smythe? And these are the Conn Smythe odds right now. Bobrovsky 2-1, Matthew Tkachuk plus 350, Eichel 4-1, Stone plus 650, Marchessault 14-1, Aiden Hill at 20-1. What do you think the chances, if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup, that Aiden Hill could be the one that wins the Conn Smythe trophy? Worth a sprint?
I mean, I guess it could happen. I don't think he's played enough, right? Because he wasn't the starter.
He's only got 8 games.
He has, and he's never had to be the story because of how they play. Like, they're just defensively, they're so structured in how they play.
What if he got another shutout tonight? What if he had a 35 save, 1-goal performance tonight, and they do beat the Panthers, and he has a shutout, and he is the difference? I think
it could happen. I think the odds are showing that, right? Like, it's not likely, but he's, it's an honorable mention thing. I mean, if Matthew Tkachuk continues like this, like, there's just no way you can give it to anybody else. And that's Bobrovsky aside. I think Bobrovsky deserves. They're just not in this position without him. But he, coming in partway through the first series, I don't think he's the reason they beat Boston. He, like you said, like, he was good and made the saves when he needed to, but that was really just the pressure and the aggressiveness of Florida is what won those games. I think undoubtedly he's the reason they beat the Maple Leafs. They just could not score on him. He was unbelievable. It's happening.
Carolina couldn't score on him either. Yeah,
Carolina can't score on anybody. And
fair enough. And
Bobrovsky has just been nuclear, man. He's just been unbelievable. And a lot of people are like, oh, like, when this sucks because good goaltending can change everything and Florida's not any good. If you are a person that still thinks that Florida's not a good team, then you're just not paying attention. Like, you're just not.
It's not a fluke. Yeah, it's not a
Florida's coming back on Boston, the greatest regular season team ever. The boot is on their throat. Boston's got to win one game, and they couldn't. And this is like, just right now, it's just a team of destiny, and Bobrovsky is a big part of it. But I mean, to me, if Tkachuk keeps scoring these important game-winning goals, I think he's got 2 overtime goals and a game winner last night. Like,
if Bobrovsky has if he has a very mediocre Stanley Cup final and Tkachuk ends up with like 5 or 6 points, it could go to him. But if he continues this, I think if he could afford to have 1 or 2 bad games, I think Bob, I do. I think just I think it's super, obviously the odd, like you talk about the odds, it's super tight, but I think right now, Bob, if it was all over, Bob would get it done. But, it's throughout the whole playoffs, but of course, voters are going to really take into consideration what happens in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, there's more weight on that one. All right, we're going to get out of here. Wyatt Johnson was with Mason Marchman and Dadonov for like a shift or two. The majority of his 5-5 hockey was with Mason Marchman and Dellandrea, but I can't see that happening. But he's still going to get the ice time. He's probably going to play alongside Dadonov, but I could see Sagan jumping up there. I could see them just going all in, on their top 6. But Wyatt Johnson over 2.5 shots. Try prizepicks.com, FTN promo code for you. They'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. We'll have a pick entry there, but it's those shooters and then the saves and then the point parlays. The lines. Think of the lines: Stevenson and Stone, Pavelski and Hintz, and Marchessault and Eichel. I would go that way. And I do like Pavelski for an apple as a single play as well. Hopefully Dallas gets it done because I want to see more hockey. I want to see more hockey before we get to the Stanley Cup Finals. All right, EY, good luck today, brother. We will catch up very soon. And Berzis, guaranteed you're going to get that shirt before June 12th. There's no question about it. I'm going to track that down, see what happened today. I don't know. Good luck. Cheers.